He stood at the back of the classroom, trying to make himself invisible. His shoes were worn out, his clothes slightly faded, and his backpack looked like it had survived 100 storms. Every time he walked in, whispers followed him like shadows. Look at him. Does he even own anything new? Why is he even here? But what no one knew, what no one even cared to notice, was that inside this quiet, overlooked boy lived something extraordinary. And one day, that hidden gift would leave everyone speechless. Before we begin, if stories like this touch your heart, make sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Welcome to Kindness Story Hub, where every story reminds us how powerful kindness can truly be. Ethan Carter was 15 years old and already used to being ignored, or worse, mocked. He lived with his mother in a small, run-down apartment on the edge of town. His mom worked double shifts at a diner, doing everything she could just to keep the lights on. Money was always tight. Some nights, dinner was just a piece of toast and tea. But Ethan never complained. He understood more than most kids his age. At school, though, things were different. Other students had the latest phones, trendy clothes, and expensive sneakers. Ethan had none of those things. His shoes had small cracks near the soles, and his hoodie was something he'd worn for years. It didn't take long for people to notice. A group of boys in his class made it their daily routine to laugh at him. "Hey Ethan, did your hoodie come from a museum?" "Careful guys, don't stand too close, poverty might be contagious." The laughter would echo, and Ethan would lower his head, pretending not to hear. But inside, every word hurt. Still, he never fought back. Instead, he stayed quiet and focused. Because there was one place where none of that mattered. Music class. The school's music room was old and dusty, but to Ethan, it felt like home. There was a piano in the corner, slightly out of tune, with a few chipped keys, but to him, it was perfect. Every day after school, while others went home or hung out, Ethan stayed behind. He would sit at that piano and play. Softly at first, then with more confidence. His fingers moved across the keys like they had a story to tell, one full of pain, hope, and something deeper than words. It was the only time he felt seen. But even that didn't stay hidden forever. One afternoon, as Ethan was playing, the door creaked open. A few students walked in, including the same boys who often mocked him. They stood there for a moment, listening. Then one of them smirked. "Wow, didn't know you could actually do something," he said, clapping sarcastically. Another laughed. "Yeah, maybe you can play us a sad song about being broke." The room filled with laughter again. Ethan stopped playing. He stared at the keys, his hands frozen. For a moment, it felt like even the piano had turned against him. Without saying a word, he stood up, grabbed his bag, and walked out. That night, Ethan didn't go back to the music room. Or the next day. Or the next. Mrs. Thompson, the school's music teacher, noticed. She had always seen something special in Ethan. The way he played wasn't learned from books, it came from somewhere deeper. So one afternoon, she found him sitting alone outside. "Ethan," she said gently, sitting beside him. "Why haven't you been coming to practice?" He shrugged. "Just busy." She looked at him carefully. "You know, talent like yours doesn't come around often." Ethan let out a quiet laugh. "It doesn't matter. No one cares." "I care," she said firmly. "And you should too." He looked down, unsure of what to say. Then she added, "There's a statewide music competition coming up. I think you should enter." Ethan's eyes widened. "Me? No. I can't." "Why not?" He hesitated. "Because people like me don't win things like that." Mrs. Thompson shook her head. "That's not true. People who believe in themselves do." For the first time in days, Ethan felt a small spark of something. Hope. The next week, Ethan returned to the music room. At first, it was hard. His confidence had been shaken, and the voices of those who mocked him still echoed in his mind. But he kept playing. Day after day. Note by note. Slowly, the music came back, not just the sound, but the feeling. Mrs. Thompson helped him prepare for the competition. She didn't just teach him technique, she reminded him of something more important. "Play your story," she told him. "Not theirs." Meanwhile, word spread around school that Ethan had entered the competition. The same boys laughed again. "This is going to be hilarious. Can't wait to see him embarrass himself." But this time, Ethan didn't stop. He just kept going. The day of the competition arrived. It was held in a large auditorium filled with students, teachers, and judges. The stage lights were bright, and the atmosphere felt overwhelming. Ethan sat backstage, his hands slightly trembling. He could hear the crowd murmuring. "What if they're right? What if I mess up?" Then he remembered his mother, working late, coming home exhausted, yet always smiling at him. He remembered Mrs. Thompson's words. "Play your story." When his name was called, Ethan took a deep breath and walked onto the stage. The room fell silent. Some people recognized him, the quiet boy from school. A few even whispered. But then, he sat down at the piano, closed his eyes, and began. The first note was soft, almost fragile. But then came another, and another. Soon, the music began to grow, stronger, deeper, more powerful. It wasn't just a performance. It was a story. A story of struggle, of being unseen, of pain and quiet strength. Every note carried emotion. Every pause spoke louder than words. The audience leaned in. The whispers disappeared. Even the boys who once mocked him sat frozen, their expressions changing. They weren't laughing anymore. They were listening. Truly listening. By the time Ethan reached the final part of his piece, the entire room was silent, completely still, as if no one even dared to breathe. And then, the last note. It lingered in the air for a moment before fading into silence. For a second, nothing happened. Then suddenly, the entire auditorium erupted in applause. People stood up, clapping louder and longer than Ethan had ever imagined. Some even had tears in their eyes. Ethan looked around, stunned. For the first time in his life, he felt seen. Later that day, the results were announced. First place, the announcer said, goes to Ethan Carter. The crowd cheered again. Ethan stood there, overwhelmed, as he walked up to accept his award. But the biggest surprise came afterward. One of the boys who had mocked him approached him. He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight. "Hey, Ethan," he said quietly. I didn't know you could play like that." Ethan didn't respond. The boy looked down. "I'm sorry for everything." There was a pause. Then Ethan gave a small nod. "Thanks." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. And sometimes, that's where kindness begins. From that day on, things changed. Not just for Ethan, but for others too. People started to treat him differently. Not because of his clothes or his background, but because they finally saw who he truly was. And Ethan. He didn't let the attention change him. He still stayed after school, still played the same old piano. But now, when he played with confidence. With pride. With a quiet reminder that no matter where you come from, your worth is not defined by what others see on the outside. So if you ever feel overlooked, or judged, or not good enough, remember Ethan. Remember that kindness matters. Because sometimes, the person the world laughs at today is the same person who inspires everyone tomorrow. And sometimes, all it takes is one moment of courage, and one act of kindness, to change everything. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a little hope today. This is Kindness Story Hub, and we'll see you in the next story.